From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Open Line.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Open Line. I'm Carrie Sharp. I'm glad you're joining me tonight for the next hour. Our topic tonight, something that a lot of folks are talking about in Nashville. That is the 34% property tax hike that is set to take effect if a referendum does not make it to a special election. I have two guests joining me now to sort through this debate, where we stand right now and where we're headed. Let me introduce them to you. First, I have Tori Venable. She is the Tennessee Director for Americans for Prosperity, and also Jason Freeman, the Political Director for the SEIU Local 205. Good evening. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
I've introduced you by name and title so far, but please, Tori, start with just telling me kind of your position in this debate.
Sure. So I'm the State Director of Americans for Prosperity, Tennessee. We do education. We educate, mobilize people to take effect and make change in their local communities. And so, we're a grassroots organization. We became involved with the Nashville Taxpayer Protection Act, which would seek to reduce that 34% property tax hike down to 2% per year, limit future government spending and future tax hikes to 2% per year, and also include some various open government things that should have been happening. So we've been engaged with that because we heard the cry of the people when Metro government refused to listen and passed a massive tax hike. And that's where we got engaged to mobilize everyone to, take action.
I'm going to get an update from you in just a second about where things stand right now. But Jason, first, I want to hear from you. You obviously work with local labor unions, with local employees. So who are we talking about?
Sure. So we represent Metro government employees, anyone from Metro Parks, Public Works, 911 dispatchers, Nashville Electric Service, the Water Department, basically any Metro employee you can think of that's not a police, a firefighter, or a transit driver. Also support staff in Metro schools and people at General Hospital as well.
Okay, Tori, I want to go back to you. Tell us where things stand right now with this referendum effort.
So we are waiting to hear back from the Metro Election Commission. They met secretly on Friday. We were supposed to have heard on Friday the decision whether or not we were going to be on the ballot. So they met with the Metro attorneys on Friday. And then the last I've heard is that we're supposed to find out tomorrow if it's going to be on the ballot or not. And, they say they have some legal concerns. We don't share those same concerns. We care about what the people want, and the people want to repeal this property tax hike.
It would seem no matter what these commissioners decide that this will likely end up in court. Do you all both agree on that?
I would assume that that's what Metro will do, anything to hold on to as much power as they can. They definitely don't want people having a voice on what their tax rates are. So I'm sure that they would definitely sue. And if they try to keep it off the ballot, we would likely file an injunction or something to get it on the ballot while the courts and the lawyers work it out.
Jason, do you agree this issue will likely end up in court regardless of tomorrow's decision?
Well, I hope it doesn't, and I think that, hopefully the Election Commission does the legally proper thing and make sure this doesn't go to a vote, because we shouldn't be wasting $1 million of people's tax dollars to have an election for something that is not legitimate, and we also shouldn't be putting people's lives at risk by making them go vote in December in the middle of this pandemic. Unfortunately, I think it probably will, because as much as Tori wants to say they're a grassroots organization, Americans for Prosperity is a national founded organization that was created by the Koch brothers that works around the country to implement policies and really sow chaos like we're seeing with this amendment.
I want to just dive into just one thing you said right there, and we will break down all of it over the next hour. That's why I love having an hour. We can really dig in. But you said this could cost up to $1 million. I've heard $800,000 to have this special election. This is in a city who says it just can't even afford that, much less to lose $300+ million if this property tax hike doesn't go through. Jason?
Sure. And I just want to say, we keep saying tax hike and we keep saying 34%. But if you go back to 2017 and you search for headlines that say massive 30% tax cut in Nashville, you won't find those headlines because no one wrote about that. But the fact is the tax rate went down by 30% in 2017 because of our reappraisal process. That's one of the reasons that this charter amendment's not valid. And even if it were written correctly, which it isn't, wouldn't be enforceable, because when you have a reappraisal process which makes things revenue neutral, it automatically sets the tax rate to a revenue neutral amount. And if this were in place and property values went up, we wouldn't be able to, property values went down, we wouldn't be able to meet the obligation of the appraisal process in Tennessee.
Tori, do you have a response to that?
Well, it's funny that he brings up 2017. So his group was one of the groups that advocated for us to have the highest property tax in the entire nation to pass this massive $9 billion transit plan that our group also worked against then. So, the reason the property tax was held off in 2017 was so that they could give us the highest sales tax in the nation. And I saw your folks out there knocking doors just when we were knocking doors. So you can say it's not true, but I saw you out there. So, here we are once again. Government always wants more. And, they're going to keep saying that it's not legal or you can't do that. They don't want the people to have a voice. And we're here to make sure that the people do have a voice.
I do want to remind our viewers that this is Open Line. So we do want to hear from you tonight. The number is on the screen. 615-737+ is the number, or 7587. Particularly if you live in Davidson County and you have questions about what is happening in this county and what this means for you as a homeowner, or what it means for you as going to the polls, go ahead, give us a call. Let us help you get those questions answered tonight. Or if you just want to sound off about what's going on, this is your time to do so. In the meantime, I'm going to keep asking questions before we have to take a quick break. Tori, this referendum does not just address this 34% property tax increase. What else does it address?
It addresses the root causes of the reckless spending and cronyism that put us in this financial position to begin with. So let's run through it, shall we? It also requires that voters have a say if they're going to raise property taxes more than 2% in the future going forward. So there are probably going to be times in the future where Metro wouldn't have a substantial need and could make the pitch to Nashvillians that they should pay a higher property tax rate, and then it would go to a voter referendum. The second part, another part of it, is the bonds. So for Metro to take out more than $15 million in debt for something that is not an essential government service, not police, not fire, not schools, not libraries, not any of the things that are actually, Nashvillians depend on for their services, if they wanted to take out an additional $15 million in bonded debt, that would have to be approved by 31 of the council members. It would also stop the land giveaways that have been happening. It would end the corporate welfare as we know it. So if taxpayers are funding, let's say, a soccer stadium or the Titan Stadium even, as we have in the past, and a sports team refuses or does not play there for 2 years, that property would revert back to the taxpayers since they paid for it to begin with and pay for the upkeep. And then last but not least, the open government. So this is where a lot of the cronyism comes in. You have Metro government has the ability to set up something called public instrumentalities. And basically, these are how they move money around in the shell game so that they don't have to provide for open records. So if more than $250,000 goes to one of these public instrumentalities, which is a shell game that government plays, then that has to be open to the public. And, Metro taxpayers should be able to look at those records.
Okay. Jason, I want to talk to you, and I just want to dive into this about if this referendum makes the ballot and voters decide they don't want to have this property tax increase, what does that look like for the city?
So, and I do want to come back to the fact that, the reasons why this shouldn't be on the ballot in the first place, because this petition doesn't include a charter amendment. It's an angry Facebook rant with some bullet points on it. But if you want to know hypothetically,
20,000 people signed because the government refuses to listen to them. Did you poll your folks? Did you poll your union members to see if they can afford this property tax increase?
Yeah, I could get a lot of people to sign a petition saying they'd like a puppy and rainbows, but that doesn't make it legal. So I will say that what this would do if this hypothetically were able to be passed, what you're talking about is closing fire stations in your neighborhood. It's making it so that when you have someone breaking into your home and you call 911, it's potential that no one answers the phone. And if they do answer the phone, that a police officer or a firefighter will not be able to make it to your house in the time that you need. It means that libraries around town, where sometimes are the only place that people have access to the internet, will be closed. Essentially, what this means is that we will cease to be a functioning city, and while you may save a little bit on your property taxes, your property value is going to go down by probably 10 to 25% instantaneously, because no one is going to continue moving here, and all business and capital investment will stop because we're not going to be able to fund any core city services. I mean, we're talking about $335 million cut out of the existing budget. You're talking about laying off hundreds of firefighters, hundreds of Metro employees, parks, libraries, public works, across the board. And so what we're talking about is utter chaos.
You know, Jason, critics have said this is just doomsday talk. It's scare tactics to get people to back off from this. How do we know this is actually what's going to happen?
It's simple math. And I can tell you, because for the last 3 years, the Metro employees have been the people that have been trying to explain to the city what happened in 2017. When we lowered the tax rate by 30% in 2017, what we did was give a $20,000 a year tax cut to the richest homeowner in the county. That happens to be Tom Frist. He lives in an $11 million house. His taxes went down by $20,000 a year. The most expensive commercial property in the city got a $282,000 a year tax cut in 2017. So over 4 years, we lost out on potential $1.6 billion in revenue. And so when people say, we had all this growth, we had all this construction, where did the money go? We left it all in the pockets of these big corporations and these rich homeowners. And I want to say that when we talk about the reason we have to have property taxes and we're so reliant on them funding the city, Tori mentioned earlier, we have the highest sales tax in the country. We have the most regressive tax system in the country, and that's because people like Americans for Prosperity are stopping us from taxing businesses and corporations that are making a lot of money. And they're stopping us from collecting taxes on rich retirees. Their big victory over the last couple of years, ending the hall tax, took $15 million out of the city budget of Nashville that was being paid by wealthy retirees, millionaires. And that money, that's 5 cents on the tax rate. Just the hall tax disappearing, and you can thank those 5 cents to Americans for Prosperity.
All right, we're going to get to the phone lines. Hang on, Tori. We're going to get to the phone lines. That's what this show is about. Gwendolyn is on the line. Gwendolyn, thanks for being with us. You're kicking off the callers tonight. Go ahead.
Okay, they ticking me off because I have 3 children, and each one of them own their house. One of them might could pay $32, a 32% hike. But what I don't understand, they want to tax all homeowners and property tax, and they let these companies come in here tax-free. Nissan, Amazon, and all of them tax-free. And then what you going to do about the people who make less than what they make? Okay, if a person makes $50,000 or $75,000 a year, 32% of that to pay on property tax, I think that's right ridiculous. And then we vote for people. They get a raise on their check, but everybody don't. And when we vote for people, they act like we owe them the money to say and do what they want to say. And I don't have a house, but my 3 children do, and I'm calling concern about them because they won't do it, and I will. Baby boomers don't play.
Well, Gwendolyn, thank you so much for calling in. I hear what you're saying. Tori, would you all like to respond to Gwendolyn? Tori, I'll let you start.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll jump in right there. You know, she's right. A large part of the reason why Nashville is in this position is because of the corporate welfare. So the taxpayer-funded incentive deals, the sweetheart deals that this mayor and previous mayors have given away to companies to lure them to our city, which was already booming, mind you. And then, you know, the rest of us, when those companies are not, you know, don't have to pay any property taxes for 20 years or whatever their sweetheart deal is, the rest of us taxpayers have to pick up their weight. And it's not right, especially now with so many people out of work, to force such a high property tax increase on them. And the fact that Metro will not even consider making cuts themselves. You notice the scare tactic, the first thing they throw out is the essential services they're going to cut. They didn't cut one dime from the Metro Council raises. They didn't cut one dime from the lifetime taxpayer-funded health benefit that the Metro Council receives. Tell me one thing that they cut. because I look at it and they grew the budget by over $1 million in a crisis year. Why would you continue growing government by $1 million during a crisis year? It just does not make sense. Obviously, Metro is not good with numbers. And I mean, this Taxpayer Protection Act would solve a lot of that because it would tie their hands.
Jason, I want to let you chime in before we have to take a commercial break. Go ahead.
Sure, and I just want to say to Gwendolyn, we completely understand the circumstances that you're in. And that's why for the past 2 years, we've tried to move a incremental or smaller property tax adjustment. And what we said to people was, this city is not prepared for a crisis. The city is too reliant on sales tax, and it's too reliant on tourism. And if something goes wrong, we are not going to be prepared. And that's exactly what happened. And I wish it didn't have to be 34% right now. I really do. I will say that what we have tried to do is use the Federal CARES Act money to keep homeowners in their homes. We wish that we could use it to credit on property taxes, but the U.S. Senate, the federal government, will not let us do that with that money. And we have asked the governor if he would relax the state regulations around property tax relief to allow people like Gwendolyn's children to have an expanded credit so that they could get relief for the people that can't afford to pay it. And the governor has not responded. And so if the state legislature would let us have a little flexibility, we'd be able to do a lot more for these folks.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and I've got several folks on the line, Edward and Gwen and Jason. We're going to get to you right after this. Stay right here.